everyone. Welcome to another video on parenting tips and tricks. If you would like a handout to follow along with this video, please use the link in the video description or go to the Galvin Growth Group website. So today we will be discussing the C in ABCs, which stands for consequences, and we are specifically discussing attending and planning. So I want to start with attending. So what is the definition of attending? Well, it's noticing when someone is doing a behavior that you wish to increase, and then providing attention by praising, smiling, asking present questions, talking nicely, hugging, or giving the child a pat on the back. So in past videos, we've discussed the power of praise. Attending is a broader category where praise is just one aspect. So simply paying attention to a behavior can foster it for the better or for the worse. So for example, if you're paying close attention while your child talks about their love of dinosaurs, it may seem as if you're only in the moment and listening to what they're saying. But when you are actually paying attention, you can have a positive effect on your child's talking and confiding in you more in the future. On the other hand, if your child is complaining about cleaning their room and you continue to give them attention by asking them over and over again to clean their room, it may increase the likelihood of them complaining in the future. Of course, you want to be sensitive about their complaints, but you should also be cautious if you're accidentally contributing to the increase of the behavior. So if you want to change a behavior, then attention should be used carefully and in special ways. As humans, we attend to all sorts of things that draw attention at the moment. Our brains are hardwired to pick up negative things in the environment. So for example, when children are playing nicely, we tend to leave them alone. However, as soon as they start fighting, we give them our attention and we think to ourselves, why can't you two get along? Or we say to them, why can't you two get along? Well, reprimands like this are not likely to help them develop cooperative behaviors. Even though the attention seems negative, attention from parents can be a reward, even if we think of it fitting a different way. So attention can be used in a planned way to have the effect that we want to change a behavior. So here's how to make attention effective. And the effectiveness of attending depends on 4 conditions. So the first one is define the behavior you want to increase. It can be helpful to write it down, the behavior, to make sure it's really clear. The second condition is decide on the type of attention you're going to use. So typically this is praise, but you can do anything that will result in paying attention to your child. So for example, you could say, I've noticed you've washed your dishes, or that you've cleaned up your toys. If this attention is provided systematically and often, rather than just on a one-shot basis, the effects can be great. Third, make sure the attention is provided immediately after the behavior. Being immediate is very important. The effects of attention is diluted or lost if there is delay. So for example, it is better to say, I like how you quickly got ready for bed while you're tucking your kid into bed instead of waiting into the morning to give them the attention about the preferred behavior. Number 4 is to attend to the behavior you want often. So if you're using attention to change behavior, then you need to make the connection between the behavior and attention frequent. So do it as much as you can. Catch your kid doing that behavior as much as you can, and then provide attention. And this is a big difference between effective attention as a behavior change tool and how attention is usually used in everyday life. So to change a behavior, we need to have the child's behavior connected to the immediate attention several times. And that is the part that develops the habit. So in other words, making attention an effective behavior change technique depends on providing immediate attention and often attention. So let's go through a quick example to consider how to use attention effectively. So first, choose your behavior. So in this example, we could say, the behavior you want to increase is sharing their toys. So what does sharing toys look like? You need a definition. So you might say, taking turns, and or calmly discussing who gets to play with which toys and no fighting. Step 2, select what kind of attention you want to use. So you could praise them, you could hug them, ask them questions about what they did, and or give them a high five. You do not have to use one type of attention, and it doesn't have to be the same each time. So now that you provide the attention while they are sharing their toys, and make sure that attention is immediately given, and make sure that you're attending to the behaviors you want to increase. It kind of seems counterintuitive, but the best way to get rid of arguing, teasing, fighting is to attend to the cooperative behaviors you want to see. So as I mentioned earlier, there are two tools that we are going to use together. So first we talked about attending, and now the additional tool is called planned ignoring. So this tool by itself does not work well. Planned ignoring should be used with attending. So what is planned ignoring? So this is when you do not give attention to a behavior. You deliberately ignore an undesired behavior in order to decrease it. To just use ignoring, you would not look at the person, not talk to them, and do not smile at them. Maybe even turn away and talk to someone else, or just leave the room. It is a good idea to avoid attending to behaviors you want to decrease, because your attention could maintain some of the behavior you do not want to continue. So that's why you're using this planned ignoring. And remember, this is not easy. Even your negative attention, like your reprimands or arguing with your child, could have an effect on maintaining some behaviors you want to get rid of. So planned ignoring does not develop the behaviors that you wish. It just ensures that you do not accidentally reward the behaviors by attending to them. So that's why they need to go hand in hand. So you ignore the behaviors that are unwanted, and then you attend to the ones that you want. So then the child learns not to do this behavior, but instead do this one. So how to make planned ignoring effective? Well, the effectiveness depends on 4 conditions. The first one, similar to attending, is to define the behavior you are ignoring. So this is the behavior you want to decrease. Second, decide which kind of planned ignoring to use when the behavior occurs. Again, there are many options. You could look away, try to avoid facial expressions to convey a reaction, ignore all requests, and of course, you can leave the room. Third, try to be consistent and use planned ignoring whenever that specific behavior occurs that you wish to decrease. Sometimes you might not be able to do that. Things might get out of hand, and you've reached a point where you can no longer tolerate and have to say something, and that is fine. But get back on track as soon as you can and resume ignoring that behavior. And finally, be sure to attend to the positive behaviors, because ignoring by itself is likely not to work. So again, ignore the chosen behavior that you want to reduce and attend to the positive behavior so that it will increase. So let's go through another example. Let's say that your child throws a tantrum. So we're going to select a behavior you want to decrease. So let's say that is throwing a tantrum in the grocery store when they are told they are not allowed to get candy. So second, select the kind of ignoring to use. So you could walk away from your child, look away, talk to another person, so on. It's important to have a strategy in mind ahead of time, so you know what you will do in the moment when the behavior occurs. So if you know that your child's going to throw a tantrum in the grocery store because you're not planning to buy them candy, have a strategy in mind so you can just go to it as soon as they start crying and hitting the floor. The third is to ignore the behavior as often and as consistently as possible. So when your child escalates and continues to whine, nag, or maybe even yell, it will be hard not to reprimand. But try to ignore the inappropriate behavior whenever you can. And if you can, just walk away. In the grocery store, just go down another aisle. Wait for them to calm down and then come back. And then fourth is absolutely critical. Attend to the positive opposite. Be sure to praise your child when they are not throwing a tantrum in the grocery store. When you told them no to buying candy and they just look at you, maybe with a sad face, maybe just say like, please, can I please have the candy? praise them for that. Be like, hey, I like how you asked me nicely if you could have the candy. Even if I said no, thank you for not throwing a tantrum. You did a great job of just asking me if you could have it. So even if your child is being non-compliant, but in a calm way, you can even acknowledge that to shape the behavior. Without attending to these positive behaviors, planned ignoring by itself is not going to work. So make sure you have the attending aspect in it as well. So you might ask, why is it even necessary if it doesn't teach what we should be doing? So why is planned ignoring needed if it doesn't teach what we should be doing? Well, it does work. It just has to be combined with attention for the behavior you want to develop. And that is key to developing the behavior with both attending and planned ignoring. So some questions come up when talking about attending and planned ignoring, and one of the most frequent ones is that parents feel that they already use attending and planned ignoring all the time and wonder if there's anything new here. And it is true, on a given day with your child, you are attending to some behaviors and ignoring others. That's just the routine and normal interaction in everyday life. But with the attending and planned ignoring, it needs to be more systematic. You need to go through the steps. You need to choose a behavior that you want to increase and one you want to decrease. And you need to come up with ways that you're going to attend and you're going to ignore. And then you need to be consistent with it. When we do this in everyday life, it's typically not as consistent as it needs to be to truly change the child's behavior. So to recap, first, for both planned ignoring and for attending, you need to define your behavior that you want to decrease or increase. Then you need to decide on the type of attending or planned ignoring you're going to use, be consistent on when you do it. And finally, when you're doing planned ignoring, you always need to have the attending as well. You need to couple them up. All right, I hope this was helpful. Let us know what kind of attending or planned ignoring strategies you're using, and please check out some of our other videos for more strategies. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.